Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to LucifroN versus Leenock. This is the final day of the N4C Swiss stage and the final set of the day, and we're probably bringing in the most important set of all remaining for final day here. The recipe is simple. These are the two players that are still fighting for that last spot available in the top 6 to get to the playoffs. And while I didn't do the exact math on the tiebreakers, I do believe that if LucifroN wins this one, he's in. And if Leenock wins this one, he's going to be in. LucifroN is currently standing at 1-3 when it comes to his match balance. And on the other side, Leenock is standing at 2-2. So a loss here for Leenock would push him to 2-3. A win for LucifroN would make him 2-3 as well. And the tiebreaker score of LucifroN is higher than Leenock's one. So in theory, LucifroN, if he wins it, he's going to be in the top 6 and moves to the playoffs. The loser of this set is likely going to be out of the tournament though. With that being said, we're going to have Leenock spawning on the left side of the map, playing as the Abbasid dynasty in red. And on the right side, we do have a somewhat interesting pick over here. The Holy Roman Empire is going to be the choice for LucifroN. He's going to be playing as the blue in high view. So on this map, Abbasids, of course, is going to be a great civilization because of the berries, although it's a somewhat surprising choice because you would normally expect it on a map like Lipony, where you don't have a lot more berries. Maybe he was trying to counterpick a potential French pick here, but in general, we have seen the Abbasids being a quite powerful civilization on these open map scenarios. Now, if there is a civilization that could potentially battle that, it could be the HRE. Because you know that the Abbasid player isn't going to push you, so you can just go for a straight fast castle with the Holy Roman Empire, and if you do that, you can start picking up the relics. Speaking of the relics, you're going to have 3 relics on the left side of the map, we're going to have 2 relics on the right side. Out of these, 2 are relatively easily accessible for our blue player LucifroN, this one over here, and this one over here. The other 3 are going to be a little more difficult, and the battle is probably going to come down to this relic in the middle. Now, the way that the Abbasid player has to play this one is that even though you play 2 town centers, you have to have some sort of map presence. You have to be able to pick off the prelates. The key thing here, as we got the Archon Chapel coming in for LucifroN, is that LucifroN will try to play with knights to battle your horsemen, and you will need to have good micro to try and pick off the prelates. The other thing that I would add here for the Abbasids is that I think camel archers could be immensely valuable here for the Abbasids. And the reason why is because, as I said, the Abbasids won't be able to completely prevent the HRE from picking up relics, especially because they will take quite a lot of time getting up to Castle Age, compared to the HRE at least. But one thing that they could do, especially if they have 1 or 2 camel archers in, is just pick off those prelates, and it's going to be difficult for the knights to prevent camel archers from killing the prelates. The knights can protect the prelates from the horsemen, no problem. But against the camel archers, it's a lot more difficult. The camel archers will debuff the knights, so they won't do that much damage on them. And the camel archers can just run circles around them and keep shooting at the prelates. So this could be an interesting aspect of Leenock's gameplay that we could possibly see. For now, Archon Chapel and Economy Wing coming in for the 2 players. No surprise about that at all. Looking at the bases real quickly, we do have a quite exposed gold mine, which could in theory be punished for LucifroN. But I would think that if Leenock just plays double town centers, LucifroN is probably going to get away with that gold mine being exposed. Archon Chapel will be placed at a beautiful spot here for LucifroN. It's going to affect the lumberjacks, the villagers underneath the town center, and it's also going to affect the berry villagers. So this is probably as good as it gets for the HRE player. Whereas on the other side, Leenock, apparently his heart rate monitor is a little out of the screen here, so the overlay people will likely fix that at some point. Leenock at 121 once again. His heart rate is usually very high when he's playing, but it didn't seem to impact him at all. It's just his usual natural habitat, so to say. Fresh foodstuffs upgrade on the way for the Abbasid player, and you see that Leenock is going to open with a stable before dropping the second town center. In fact, I'm not even sure if he's going to start mining stone here. The obvious and the meta Civ pick here, and the strategy with it with the Abbasids, is going to be playing 2 town centers. But you gotta ask the question, do you want to do it against HRE? And it seems like Leenock is not going for stone. He's dropping a stable, dropping a range. This could be full horseman, camel archer. And at this point, LucifroN, to a certain extent, is gambling on the fact that Leenock is going for a second town center. And if he just goes naked fast castle here, basically no army being made, and he just wants to go fast castle here, hoping that his opponent is going for a second town center, he could easily get punished over here, especially for such an exposed gold mine. Spearmen are now being added by our blue player LucifroN, but even just 1 camel archer can pick those off so easily. as we switch to Leenock's POV, and it looks like he's waiting for the food to pile up for a Camel Archer. Camel Archers, of course, have higher mobility than Archers, and more importantly, they only take 2 shots to kill a Spearman, so it's very easy to pick off those spears with it. So I'm suspecting that Leenock is going to play with Camel Archers here, and I think this is the moment where LucifroN is realizing that, oh shoot, I could be up against a significant amount of army coming my way. In fact, this is the wildcard factor of the Abbasids. It's almost guaranteed that the Abbasids will play with double town centers, but in the rare case of them not doing so, you're going to encounter a lot of pressure early on, because the Abbasids are very good with early pressure as well. Switching to the POV of LucifroN here for a brief moment, he still has that gold mine exposed, and of course, he's going to spot the barracks, he's going to spot the archer range, but now, in terms of unit composition, he's not going to have an easy time. First couple of spears moving out now for LucifroN. He's got an archer range as well, so both players do have a range, a barracks, and a stable. So in terms of unit compositions, you could see something very similar. The real wildcard here is going to be the Camel Archers of the Abbasid player. Looks like we do have a bit of a lag with the feed coming from the player PCs, so it looks like the production crew will switch back to the actual broadcast overview. And it seems like Leenock is not even planning a delayed second town center. This is going to be 1 TC full Feudal Age warfare. Now, the last time I saw Leenock play, he actually used Chinese on an open map. That was a little weird of an approach and it didn't work out. Now he's going for the Abbasids, that's a bit more of a meta choice. Curious to see if he's going to try a Chinese pick in the future though. Horseman now being added as we speak for LucifroN. Of course, he's a powerful economy right now. He's got the Aachen Chapel boosting his eco. And that's the thing that is going in the favor of LucifroN right now. The Abbasids, they want to play with 2 town centers because they're not a spectacular civilization when they only play with 1. They have the berries, but that's basically it. And you see LucifroN is now overrunning the forces of Leenock over here with the HRE. Leenock is trying to go for those berries that are just about to get exposed here. New Camel Archers joining the party over here. Of course, the key thing is keeping those Camel Archers alive. You lose them, you basically have no tools of dealing with the Spearman. Gotta love the way that LucifroN is hiding a scout here overlooking the berries, so he knows very well that his opponent is taking those berries right now. Both players currently just massing army in Feudal Age. No Castle Age on the horizon for either of them, including the HRE player. Now, LucifroN started adding farms over here, and obviously that's a big investment at this point. He's just too afraid of moving out of his base right now for the hunt. Of course, some of those farmers are affected by the Aachen Chapel, so somewhat similarly to what you would see from an English player going for the farms that are boosted by the mill, you can justify going for farms with the HRE that are boosted by the Aachen Chapel. For now, both players are poking and probing. Both of them have scouts accompanying the army, which is a must-have for this map. You need to know where the opponents are, and you need to know that you're not running into a trap over here. And for a brief moment, you could see the scouts revealing the army location for Leenock, and LucifroN is hesitating to attack. I think he's waiting for an opportunity to strike, hoping that his opponent will move out, and then he can hit the berries. LucifroN behind this one, 600 food per minute, 700 right now for Leenock, of course. But Leenock is living off exclusively from the berries, and of course, some sheep. But his main source of food right now is going to be the berries, and now Leenock is launching a counterattack with some horsemen and camel archers. He leaves behind a detachment of spearmen and archers, so his berries are not completely defenseless, but he's taking the highly mobile component of his army, and he's looping around, trying to hit LucifroN's probably wood eco here from behind. He's also probing those berries and hunts, seeing if LucifroN is taking them. LucifroN, so far not spotting the enemies. This could come as a nasty surprise, because those horsemen and camel archers could jump on his villagers from the north quite easily. LucifroN still unaware of those forces coming in. This is the time where he's going to spot them, and with the camel archers being there, it's much easier to kill the villagers, because the horsemen don't have a tremendous amount of damage output, but boy oh boy do the camel archers do. And it looks like it's going to be a two-pronged attack by Leenock. He knows very well that he's going to have to pull the opponent's forces to the north with this army, and then he's going to strike at the gold mine. For the time being, it looks like the bait is not taken by LucifroN. In fact, he's just going to push to the south, but this leaves the northern side open, and it looks like another villager is about to get picked off. One horseman goes down here for Leenock, but it looks like now LucifroN is ready to retaliate. Leenock is up 4 villagers against his opponent, so Leenock is going to have to hold off this push, and then he's going to be in a good position. But holding this off is going to be difficult, because guess what? Most of the spearmen are getting picked apart by the archers, and now the brute force push here from LucifroN could prevail, because suddenly, in the middle of the map, he's got the numbers advantage. Leenock still harassing the opponent over here with the Camel Archers and the Horsemen, but the thing is that at this point, LucifroN is more than happy to just directly push the middle, because he's aware that he could cut off the enemy from the berries. Emergency repairs are being popped on the house. This is going to buy some more time here for LucifroN to react to that aggression, and it looks like he's ready to push the base of Leenock. Leenock, for now, harassing the other houses. Still no reaction coming in from LucifroN, and you have to keep in mind that his berries are somewhat exposed to that aggression. Indeed, the berry villagers will have to go back to the town center over here. Bit of an overextension here by LucifroN. He's going to lose 2 villagers, 3 villagers, and it looks like it's going to be a 4th villager surviving, running into the safety of the town center. Here comes the army of LucifroN. He's pulling back all his forces to try and clean this one up. But of course, now Leenock is just going to start running away, and he's gonna be like, okay, whatever, I'm going to run, and now counterattack in the middle. So that's the mobility component that Leenock is utilizing. Oh, beautiful cutoff here. That's a beautiful move. LucifroN is able to surround that army with the spearmen, get some beautiful hits on those camels and some of the horsemen. Great move there by LucifroN. He cut off the escape path, and now this is apparently a fight that Leenock is taking in the middle. Leenock is crawling up with his forces, but upon seeing his forces getting pushed back on the left side, he's thinking twice and he retreats. Camel Archers getting taken down is an expensive loss for Leenock, because those are difficult to replace. Ooh, 2 armies bumping into each other over here. There is no scout in the army of LucifroN, so he doesn't know what he's up against, and he's falling into a trap here, potentially. The spearmen do brace for impact, but the archers over here for Leenock, picking off most of the spears. Both sides are sending in the cavalry to deal with the archers. Spearman numbers still looking quite healthy over here for LucifroN, and he's getting some beautiful hits on the cavalry with his spears. Brute force numbers seem to be working out a lot better over here for LucifroN. He's trying to regroup. His archers are still working against the opponent's archers. Spearmen taking down most of the cavalry from Leenock. He's got some more horsemen left over here trying to jump on the archers, and it turns out that his spearmen are still alive, and with that, he's going to be able to hold off these forces for a brief moment, but then Leenock just continues to push further. It seemed like it was going to be able for Leenock to reinforce that army a lot better, and he's now able to push back LucifroN back into his base, leaving that gold mine quite exposed. Now, Castle Age is now an option for LucifroN, and part of the reason why I think that Leenock was able to push this one is because LucifroN didn't want to invest more resources into his army, and he just wanted to go to Castle. It's not impossible that Leenock also clicked up, we'll have to see, but I don't think that Leenock is going up. Whereas for LucifroN, he wants to go up. Leenock had the resources for Castle Age, but he realized that he could just go for a full feudal push right now and inflict significant damage on the opponent. He already has a 6 villagers lead, which is also not something to be underappreciated, as there is going to be the Regnitz Cathedral being rushed up. Once we get to Castle Age, if we can get a couple of men-at-arms out for LucifroN, he's gonna be more than fine against this one. But you see Leenock, I think Leenock is also going up, or at least I would suspect that he's going to click up very soon. His opponent is definitely going up, but once the observer switches to Leenock's POV, we should see if he's already building the next wing. I would think not, because he still has a ton of gold in the bank. And that is going to be a quite significant delay that he's going to encounter. If he's not going up just yet, then the window here for LucifroN is going to be quite significant. Now, in terms of relic locations, it's worth noting that indeed, LucifroN is unaware of those relic spots. Most of the relic spots were not scouted by LucifroN, so he's going to be walking out there with those prelates pretty much blind. Now, he's going to eventually find those relics, but obviously this is going to slow down his process, and now Leenock sees that his opponent is in Castle Age. He knows that it's a now or never scenario. He needs to push into the opponent's base, realizing that his opponent just spent tons of resources going into Castle Age, and the archers will dive deep into the base of LucifroN here, picking off so many villagers. LucifroN is losing villagers left and right here. Town Center is helping immensely, pushing back all those archers, but the casualties are quite significant for LucifroN, and the most alarming thing for him is that his access to gold has been cut off. His gold mine up front is exposed, and that is not something that he can access. And of course, being pinned back inside his base also means that he's struggling to access those relics with the prelates. And at some point, Leenock is going to click up to Castle Age, which I think will be right now, because he now stopped making army and he's getting ready for Castle Age. Leenock still applying a lot of pressure to the base of LucifroN. LucifroN currently at 16 army, his opponent at 26. And there is going to be the culture wing coming in for Leenock. You can see it on the far right. Right below the the heart rate monitor. Looks like LucifroN is gonna be able to get some gold for himself from that far right-hand side gold mine. This is not something that was discovered just yet by Leenock. Worth noting is the fact that Leenock has an 11 villagers lead, so if LucifroN isn't able to grab relics, the eco disadvantage is going to be quite significant here. For now, Leenock keeps up the pressure on the opponent's eco, but he hasn't found those gold miners on the right side just yet. LucifroN currently controlling 0 relics though, and that's the main problem for him right now. With the HRE, your win condition to a certain extent is securing those relics, especially if you have taken a beating in Feudal Age like LucifroN did. So without relics, having a 13 villager disadvantage is going to be quite problematic. And of course you have the Alchemy Chapel, but your opponent does have the berries to work with. So ultimately the economies should be rather comparable. Leenock in fact has a way better food eco than his opponent does. Here come the knights however, and there is not a lot of spearmen or crossbowmen to deal with this one for Leenock. He seemed to be surprised about his opponent showing up with knights. I think Leenock was expecting his opponent to be completely cut off from gold, and that wasn't the case. Now the knights are starting to rampage this army over here, and it looks like while Leenock was trying to get a jump on those archers, in the end the knights are just spearheading through the forest here, and those knights are something that currently Leenock has no answer to. He can start making spearmen, but I don't think that he was expecting so many knights to show up, and now he's paying the price. And the HRE, being able to spam those knights with the Alchemy Chapel boosting your eco, is still a dangerous foe, as here come the knights, ready to hit the gold miners of Leenock. Leenock just now hitting Castle Age. Of course he wants to go for crossbows, he wants to go for lancers, but he could be cut off from gold really fast over here. The archers not firing on those villagers, they will try to focus down the spears, but this means that all the villagers will get away for the time being. And when the first couple of crossbowmen arrive, it's going to be much more difficult to keep those knights alive. Looks like all the archers and the villagers will jump into the town center, so the best thing that LucifroN can do right now is try to rampage the wood eco. Lumberjacks are mostly in the town center as well. Archers still camping underneath the tower though, and you're going to have the cavalry coming in here. Archers, it looks like they're getting surrounded. Look at that beautiful move here from Leenock. He's getting all the archers out and the horsemen also jumping on the forces of LucifroN. And it looks like the numbers are there for Leenock for this fight. He's cleaning up all the forces of LucifroN. He waited to see LucifroN pushing deep into his base, and then he jumped out of the town center with the archers, and he's going to get a beautiful surround on those forces. With that, he wipes out this counterattack from LucifroN, and suddenly Leenock does have the army lead once again. He has a 13 villagers lead as well, but LucifroN was able to use this window to start grabbing relics. He's got 2 relics coming in towards that Ragnitz Cathedral. Looks like we have a knight counterattack over here. This is not something that Leenock was expecting, and of course having so many stealth forests in front of your base makes it very difficult to spot incoming enemy units, and this raid is going to be quite helpful for LucifroN to compensate for the previous villager losses. He's gonna be able to pick up quite a few villager kills. The villager deficit is now down to 8. Looks like he might be able to get one more here. Nope. No more villagers to kill, and it looks like now the spearmen and the horsemen will push those knights away. Of course, LucifroN is just using this as a diversion. He wants to make sure that while his opponent is addressing those raids, he's able to access those relics. Speaking of relics, as I said, this is the relic that is the matter of the question right now. That should be accessible for LucifroN right now, as Veteran Spearman comes in as an upgrade for Leenock. The other 2 relics will be difficult to access. The problem is that LucifroN doesn't see it. This little blue dot on the right side, that's a prelate. He's looking for a relic. And this is the problem with the lack of scouting. LucifroN has the window to pick this relic up, but he doesn't see it, so he can't just send a prelate out there to find it. And by the time he might find it, he might lose the map control he needed to pick it up. And this is a concern for him right now, because by the time he will find the relic, he might not even have the window to capture it. Quite a lot of farming eco being set up here by LucifroN as a counterattack is being assembled by Leenock. He's going to push at the middle and also from the north at the same time. So Bit of a diversion and then the direct push also accompanying this force. Here come the horsemen. There is also one lancer mixed in, some camel archers. So quite a lot of firepower over here for Leenock. He's gonna be able to pick off one villager. He's picking off a prelate, which is great value for that cavalry force. And now that the archers arrive, he should be pulling his forces back. But there's the retaliation coming in here from LucifroN, and he's picking off quite a lot of villagers on the berries. Those berries were mostly depleted, but still, quite a few villagers going down over here from our red player. Still, 10 villagers difference between the two players, as LucifroN is still looking for those villagers, but the line of sight of those knights is so low in the stealth forest but that it's very difficult for him to find those escaping villagers. A second town center was being built by Leenock, so now he's gonna be on 2, and it looks like the relic will be yoinked from the right side. So this prelate found a relic that was around here, and he's going to have the third relic being brought back to the Ragnitz Cathedral of LucifroN. Knights still rampaging the eco here of Leenock. Leenock is struggling to clean this one up because there is so many spearmen chasing him. He's got a force behind the base of LucifroN that's once again coming in for a raid, and this is pinning quite a lot of the forces from LucifroN inside his base because it's difficult to clean this up without having any army back at home. So LucifroN is sort of forced to keep quite a lot of forces back at home to just deal with that aggression. But the third relic will be captured. That's quite a few villagers being killed here, and LucifroN did not seem to notice this. He's down to 38 villagers. It's getting worse and worse. Still no reaction from LucifroN. 38, 36, finally pulls the villagers, but is it too late now? Of course, the HRE have the option to go up with the Palace of Swabia to Imperial, and LucifroN seems to be banking up resources for that. But 32 villagers is not necessarily a good outlook, especially because your opponent could just push you before you can really capitalize on that Palace of Swabia. So you get the feel that LucifroN could be in trouble here. He's dropping the Palace of Swabia as we speak, behind the back of that wood line, although it's probably just going to be there to protect the farming eco at this point. Archer range is now being dropped, and you gotta wonder if the solution here for LucifroN is gonna be hand cannoneers. Because getting up to Imperial, he could start getting some hand cannoneers going, and those would be quite effective against the infantry. For now, Leenock has 70 villagers, LucifroN only at 33, but he can recuperate those losses quite easily. However, Leenock is gonna have a window here. 56 army against 19. Leenock's military is much larger, and he has a window to push his opponent before he could get his eco going with the Palace of Swabia. Leenock now sees that his opponent is aging up, so he's going to know that this is the time to strike. He's got 2 mangonels coming in as well, and most of the army from LucifroN I think is archers, so those mangonels will be difficult to deal with because there is not a single springald out there, and indeed the spearmen and the crossbows are just pushing straight into the base of LucifroN, ready to strike. Third mangonel was planned but then cancelled. Now the mangonels are opening fire on those farms. And I think Leenock is realizing that the easiest way to set LucifroN back quite a bit is going to be just taking down the farming eco. He's making a springald on the battlefield. The springald opens fire against the mangonel of LucifroN. LucifroN loses the mangonel swiftly over here. 2 more springalds being added by Leenock. Leenock was able to burn down a significant portion of the farming eco. Now LucifroN pushing forward with the archers. He doesn't have the tools right now to fight this one, and he knows that very well. Springolds and mangonels now on the battlefield for the Abbasid player, and it's time to push into that food eco. And despite the fact that with the Palace of Swabia, it's very cheap to produce villagers, if you have absolutely no food income, you still won't be able to afford it. I think what Leenock needs is a battering ram to start knocking on those buildings a little more aggressively. Villagers are being pulled here for LucifroN. He knows that he needs to stop this aggression right here, right now. Villagers will throw some torches on the mangonels. 1 mangonel goes down. The second mangonel is not set up. It's going to get a volley out right now on those archers, and that's going to be a beautiful volley, wiping out all the archers from LucifroN. That was a huge hit, and that is something that could potentially put that final nail in the coffin of LucifroN for this game, because his army count is now just disappearing. The springolds are finishing off the leftover crossbowmen, and with new mangonels being built on the battlefield, only 47 population for LucifroN. He still has the Palace of Swabia, but how is he going to be able to keep his buildings alive here against the battering rams, against the mangonels? You get the feel that Leenock could just directly march into his base, start taking down the town center, start taking down the Aachen Chapel. And indeed, LucifroN taps out. Number 1 victory in the hands of Leenock. In a fight for a position in the playoffs, Leenock is able to take a massive win here. And for a long time, it looked decent for LucifroN. He seemed to be able to get to Imperial and then start working out on the Palace of Swabia. But the key thing was timing by Leenock. He knew fully well that if the opponent gets to Imperial and starts working with the Palace of Swabia, he's going to fall behind in economy. He knew fully well that the HRE picking up free relics is going to be dangerous to him. And he realized that, okay, his opponent just spent tons of resources getting up to Imperial with the Palace of Swabia. This is the time to strike. And the Mangonel shot in the end was just the cherry on top of the cake. And with that, now it's a win for Leenock. He's going to take the win with the Abbasids over here. And on the right side, we're going to have LucifroN losing with the HRE. We're going to get into the first home map of LucifroN, and as you can see on the screen, it is going to be either Dry Arabia or Mongolian Heights. Now, given the fact that on this open map scenario, Leenock was able to win, one would be tempted to say that Mongolian Heights could be a good idea here. Rus is an option for both players, of course. As you see, Delhi is the ban for both players. So Rus is an option for either side. Chinese is an option. HRE technically is a possibility for Leenock. It's no longer accessible for LucifroN. And we have to highlight that Leenock played a crazy long Mongolian Heights game against, I believe that was, it had to be Vortex, right? No, it was Beastie QT. It was Beastie QT in round 2. It was HRE for Leenock versus the Rus of Beastie QT. You gotta wonder if Leenock is going to pick HRE again, or he's just going to learn from that game and say, okay, HRE is a very powerful civilization on this map, but the Rus have great answers to them late game, and just go for the Rus here. So we're going to see game number 2 come up either on Dry Arabia or Mongolian Heights, but definitely on one of the home maps for LucifroN. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 2 between LucifroN and Leenock, a traditional civilization matchup, English versus French, a matchup that we see so frequently, yet with so different outcomes. Spawning in on the northern side of the map is going to be LucifroN playing as the English in blue, and down south it's going to be Leenock playing as the French in red. French versus English, a matchup where it's going to be mobility versus lack of mobility, brute force direct spearhead versus knights raiding the opponent's eco. A matchup which is winnable for either of these civilizations. They're curious to see how this goes. Looks like we have a double scout opening for Leenock, and he was quite successful gathering sheep here. Whereas on the other side, that one scout that we're seeing on the screen for LucifroN wasn't particularly successful grabbing any sheep, to be honest. It looks like Leenock is going to be quickly scouting the entire map here with those scouts, very effective. You see, what he did when it comes to scouting is that he sent his scout forward first, and the idea is that he's trying to capture all the sheep that's in here, and now he's going to swing back. In comparison, what you see on the other side for LucifroN is that he's scouting his own side of the map. When you're playing with one scout, you probably start off with your own side because you know that if you go to the opponent's side, by the time you arrive, your opponent might pick up all the sheep and then you're left with nothing. But if you play with two scouts, you can easily justify sending one forward for the sake of capturing some extra sheep from the opponent's side. And it looks like LucifroN is having a very tough time gathering sheep. He only has a couple underneath the town center, and he's only operating with one scout that is currently being trailed by no sheep. Looking at the bases of the players, as LucifroN is going up with the Council Hall, no surprise about that one. On the other side, oops, that's the wrong overlay people. Yep, this is actually the scene without the actual overlay on it. Not exactly sure if it's just not loading up or something, but it seems to be the case, so I guess the production crew will have to fix that in a matter of seconds. Anyways, it looks like we're just switching into POVs. LucifroN has that scout added to 1, 2, 3, and 4 hotkeys. That's an interesting talking point because we could now see a couple of different hotkey approaches by players. For whatever reason, LucifroN's town center is 7. Now, I don't have a clear answer why exactly that's the case. It could be related to one of his previous RTS days, you know. I think LucifroN comes from StarCraft and Warcraft, if I'm not mistaken. I'm like 95% sure in that. So it's possible that it's related to something like that, because obviously if he had a good system of hotkeys set up in the previous RTS that he has played, then he's also going to try and translate that into Age of Empires. So that's possible that the reason why he's using 7 as his town center hotkey is because of that. This being said, you see that there is a quite exposed goldmine over here for Leenock, and for a French player that's quite dangerous. especially because the English will directly open with the barracks and spears, and what you would expect for the English here, especially with such a gold mine for Leenock, is to bring in some spearmen, bring in some archers or longbows, and just try to deny that gold mine. Looks like it would be great if we actually had a grand overview of the map, to be honest. I'm not against the player of POVs, but at 4-minute mark we couldn't even take a look at the map, so hopefully that will change. Okay, finally. So, these gold mines, all on the front, all quite exposed. And the one that's currently being used is extremely exposed, and it's even close to the wood line. So, if there is any chance for a tower for LucifroN, this should be a scenario where he needs to drop that. He's apparently dropping farms though, so it's possible that he's not going to play very aggressive. It's going to be more like a defensive playstyle with some spears, some longbows, and he's going to play with the farming eco. I think he could have justified going for the tower and the spearman longbow play, but I understand he doesn't want to risk it, because the thing is that if you lose that push, you are going to be in a tough time, or in a tough position. You're going to be in for a tough game. Leenock is up to feudal, and he's going to open up with what seems to be a knight. No, it's actually a horseman. He's playing a horseman for the time being, not really going super aggressive. In terms of economy upgrades, Leenock has gotten wheelbarrow, and he's also grabbing the lumberjacking upgrade right now. Whereas on the other side, for LucifroN, he's only going for wheelbarrow. He's picking off the berries so he can place the farms in their place. And I think he also ran out of sheep. So part of the reason why LucifroN might be so heavy on the farming is not even because he wants to go for that defensive farming style play that we commonly see from players like Mista, for example. The reason why he might be adding farms already is simply because he's out of sheep. So that's a bad sign, because while the English farming eco is great, the fact that you're sort of forced to do farms at the beginning simply because you don't have enough sheep is not necessarily a great sign. This being said, the English farming eco will still be powerful, but you're gonna have to invest a lot into that farming, and what's more important is that you don't have the opportunity to punish Leenock for such an exposed gold mine, so Leenock has to be very happy with the fact that he's not getting his gold mine pushed. Longbow numbers steadily increasing over here for LucifroN. He's not adding a barracks right now, and Leenock is just going for a couple of horsemen, so neither of the players are putting a significant amount of emphasis on a feudal age pressure, and it's really just going to be that poking and probing style scenario, where both players will try to see if there are any openings, try to see if there is any windows to kill villagers, but they won't really force anything here, or at least not at the beginning of feudal age. Barracks now being dropped here by LucifroN. You do have to respect the ability of the English to field a lot of longbows really fast, so despite the fact that so far we haven't seen a ton of aggression from LucifroN, now he's slowly crawling up, and he's realizing that his opponent doesn't have a ton of army. In fact, if you look at Leenock right now, he's going for a lot of eco upgrades. He has gotten horticulture, he has gotten the lumberjacking upgrade, and of course he has gotten the wheelbarrow before. So he was focusing a lot on his economy, and now he's trying to jump on those longbows. The spearmen are lagging behind a tiny bit, but the first spearman now gets onto the battlefield. It looks like Leenock still wants to fight this one, but I don't think that he saw the spearman when he started to take that fight. And in the end, he's going to lose 2 horsemen to the spearmen and the longbows, and suddenly, Leenock is in a position where he has to start adding army quite rapidly, because as I said, he was focusing a lot on his economy at the beginning, and now he could be pushed very hard. There's only one spearman accompanying that group of longbows though, so you gotta be careful about that. Losing the spearman will basically mean that you're going to lose your longbows to the cavalry of the opponent. Blacksmith upgrades coming in for Leenock. He already has melee attack thanks to being French. Now he's going for a ranged attack upgrade, and he's massing archers back at home. He's thinking about intercepting some reinforcements. He's got some horsemen cutting off the reinforcements from LucifroN right now. But there is spearmen escorting those longbows for the time being. Here comes the push. Archers from Leenock focusing down that one spearman. And as I said, that spearman is the thing that's keeping those longbows alive. One spearman will be picked off by the archers. The second spearman, still alive actually. One spearman just went down, the second spearman is working wonders, and it looks like Leenock wasn't focusing down those spearmen because only now do they fall. And now, with the scout also tanking up some damage, the longbows focusing down those low HP horsemen, this fight became better for LucifroN than it should have been. Leenock did not focus down those spears, and because of that, they were able to do a ton of damage to the horsemen. New spearmen appearing on the battlefield, as it looks like LucifroN is acknowledging the fact that he won't be able to push Leenock's base here immediately. So what he needs to do is drop a tower in the middle and just use that as a staging ground. Looks like Leenock is thinking about the counterattack here. He is going to have the mobility component, although these are only horsemen, and while horsemen are scary to a certain extent, they won't be doing that much damage to villagers, especially if the villagers have the textiles upgrade. There is going to be a quite significant window for LucifroN to react to such an aggression, whereas for knights, if these were knights, they would be a lot scarier. So this is something that will force LucifroN to react, but it's not as intimidating as it looks like, or at least not for now. Horsemen now coming in on the farmers. This is going to be something that LucifroN spots. It's only horsemen, so you could just keep 1 or 2 spearmen back at home and deal with this one. He keeps probing those farmers. Now he's going to see the longbows and the spearmen back at home, and that should say, okay, I'm going to leave because there's no way that I will be able to get anything done with those spearmen and those longbows nearby. Behind this one, Leenock is not mining any gold, and LucifroN also has just a minimal amount of gold income, so neither of the players are thinking about Castle Age, and now you see Leenock running out of sheep underneath the town center. For now, he's going to have a hunt at the back. That's a very nice hunt to work with, and since he's not getting pushed by the English player, he can go out there and he can consider himself relatively safe, because it's quite unlikely that LucifroN will be pushing that hunt. Army numbers looking slightly better for Leenock right now, 29 versus 19. And it seems like this is the time frame where LucifroN is deciding on going up to Castle Age potentially, because he isn't really adding a lot more army. He still has some map presence, he's trying to keep that tower alive. But as you see, he's banking up a ton of food and he's sending villagers to gold. Just a minute ago, he had like 30 gold per minute income, now it's 120. He's still relatively far away from Castle Age, but he's banking up resources for it potentially. Now, the risk that he's taking is that now there is a large army of archers moving to the right side, and what I would suspect Leenock will do is that he's going to send in the cavalry from the left side, hit this area. This forces LucifroN to react here, and then, when he does that, the archers will swing in and either hit these farmers or hit these gold miners. Here comes the push, the gold miners will be hit by the archers. Looks like it's going to be the other way around, the archers arrive first, which is going to, of course, force LucifroN to fall to the right side, and then the cavalry comes in from the left side, and suddenly, LucifroN is facing a ton of idle time. He did lose 2 villagers on the farms, he did lose 2 villagers on the gold mine, so now Leenock has a 43 villagers lead, partially thanks to the fact that he's got the French town center working faster. But the key thing is that there is also a lot of idle time on the eco of LucifroN. If you look at Leenock's resources, completely untouched French economy, especially with that hunt being available, it is going to skyrocket that food eco for the time being, and that is going to propel Leenock to probably a better Castle Age time than LucifroN. And let's keep in mind that whoever loses this set is going to be out of the tournament pretty much. So this is a very important set, and Leenock is looking like he's in a great shape, he's in a great position, and it looks like once again the attack in the middle will force LucifroN to get his army to the middle, and then the archers will jump on the gold miners. The longbows are nearby, but they weren't in a perfect position, so 2 volleys come in from the red archers, they take down 2 villagers, and the longbows are slightly slower than the standard archers, so the archers can just run away from this combat, see if they can get some more damage done on those farmers. Castle Age coming in right now for Leenock, and he's coming up with the guild hall as one would expect. After getting to Castle Age, Royal Knights could become a reality, because so far he hasn't really been spending gold on making army. That could soon change, we could see some knights appear on the battlefield. We do have double barracks being dropped by Leenock, so it's actually possible he's gonna play men-at-arms, which could work in theory, but of course, the same thing applies to this scenario as we have had multiple times during the tournament. If you go men-at-arms, it's going to take a lot of time for you to get to the opponent's base, which will make it very difficult to do damage before the opponent gets to Castle Age. Now for Leenock, this scenario is still good because his opponent is still far from Castle Age, partly to thanks to the fact that the archers are doing quite a lot of damage here, and once again, LucifroN being pulled to the right side, you can already predict the horsemen coming in from the left. Leenock is pulling all the forces of LucifroN to the right, and the horsemen are coming in from the left. Once again, even if they cannot kill villagers, they will idle quite a few, and this is something that's keeping LucifroN pinned inside his base. This two-pronged attack, the two components, the horsemen and the archers, these are just helping each other so much here. And now, finally, LucifroN is going to split up his army. He's going to have the spearmen going to the left to hold off the cavalry, and the archers, or the longbows, going to the right to clean up the archers from Leenock. But of course, now Castle Age is in for Leenock, so he can get some Royal Knights out if he wants to. It looks like he's just going for the Veteran Archer upgrade, and he's going for Men-at-Arms as well. No heavy cavalry being added whatsoever. LucifroN is getting close to Castle Age himself, though. And part of the reason why I'm going Men-at-Arms here with the French is risky is because if the English player gets up to Castle Age, he's going to have his own Men-at-Arms, and those will have a higher armor once they get the Clad Armor unique upgrade. Horsemen still poking around, and you see that Leenock is using those leftover forces from Feudal Age as units that are supposed to just basically keep Leenock inside his base, and he has been doing that quite well so far. LucifroN wasn't able to leave his base at all. Now LucifroN gets a visual confirmation on those Men-at-Arms coming forward. They're still far away though, and as we see, LucifroN is on the way to Castle Age. I do believe that the King's Palace that he's placing on the gold mine, archers are coming in though, and this could be a disaster. If they can deny that King's Palace, that would be an absolute disaster here for LucifroN. He's already behind by 16 vills. I think the King's Palace is going up, but there might be a chance for Leenock to pick off one or two villagers over here. Archers open up on the vills, takes down one, takes down two, takes down three, takes down four. The building goes up, but that's going to be a lot of villager casualties out there. And on the other side, you're also seeing the Men-at-Arms appear. In fact, some of the gold miners are also getting picked off by the archers, and they might be able to hit the lumberjacks. LucifroN is just now sending over the longbows to clean them up. The army numbers are still looking good for LucifroN. He's at 45, but he only has 33 villagers right now, as opposed to 57 of the opponent. He's gonna be able to make up for the losses, of course, with the second town center, but he's gonna have to hold off all those Men-at-Arms. And the thing is that he can make his own Men-at-Arms, but he would be outnumbered anyways, and those Men-at-Arms just don't care. They run into the town center fire, they run into the longbowman fire, and this allows all of those archers to jump on lumberjacks. LucifroN is once again going to be stuck inside his town centers, and this is a fight that Leenock is heavily outnumbered in, but he's also able to take some good engagements because the Men-at-Arms are doing so well against those spears and the longbows. Looks like Leenock is also ready to start picking up some relics on the map. He's realizing that his opponent right now is pinned inside his base, so this is a great opportunity to pick up some relics. He also was quite successful raiding the farming eco while the opponent was distracted, so you can see some dead villager bodies lying around on those farms. That was a courtesy of those leftover horsemen, and now you're seeing Leenock bringing back the first relic. Numbers are not looking great for LucifroN right now, especially eco numbers. Leenock's army numbers aren't spectacular, we're talking about just 18 army, but Leenock has a quite decent resource bank, so at this point I think he's piling up resources just so that he can grab some more expensive eco upgrades. He's grabbing some relics for himself, so he's understanding the fact that right now he doesn't need a huge army because his opponent is still pinned inside his base. So might as well just focus on the economy and build that up even more. He's got 420 stone in the bank, which is very nice. He's still playing with one town center, though, I do believe. And I think he's just now moving to another stone mine. Right here. I think that's a stone mining operation, although he's got 0 stone per minute right now. If he wanted to, he could start thinking about the castle, which would obviously help a lot for the French to afford cheaper units. And he also has a guild hall working. I wonder if he had the guild hall set on stone. That would be an intriguing choice if you think about that, because I don't think that he mined a lot of stone. This is the first time him using any stone. He didn't build a castle, he didn't build extra town centers, he didn't even had towers with arrow slits whatsoever. So you would ask the question, how is he having 420 stone in the bank? And the answer is probably, it's because he used the guild hall for that. And that could be an easy way of acquiring stone for a second town center, because there's a second town center coming up at the far left. Now he's walling up. He knows that he's got the advantage, so he just wants to make sure he doesn't throw that away. Now, one thing that you have to respect here, though, is that the English, if they're given time, they will be able to get back in terms of villagers thanks to the King's Palace. And once we get to Imperial, the English will have of course, the enclosures on the farms, and that's going to give a very nice gold eco for English. So you don't necessarily want to drag this game out until post-Imperial against the English, simply because the English late game is not so underwhelming. Longbows being healed up back at home. Looks like archers and men-at-arms are being assembled by LucifroN. He's going to be having quite a lot of mangonels to face, though, as it looks like indeed it's gonna be Longbows Men-at-Arms versus Archers Men-at-Arms. Of course, this is a much better unit composition for LucifroN, though, because his Men-at-Arms are going to be much stronger, and of course his Longbow numbers are looking also quite a bit healthier. Archers creeping up on the wood line might be able to get one or two villager kills over here, but it looks like LucifroN's reaction is swift here, so not a single villager getting taken down. Some ambitious walls on the other side, though, by Leenock. Look at these walls. These walls on that side, that's pure ambition. If he can make those happen, his opponent is going to lose a significant amount of map. Veteran Knight now coming in for Leenock, so he's thinking about adding some more cavalry because the English are still a slow civilization here. So even just having a group of 5 veteran Royal Knights could be immensely helpful to raid the opponent. Looks like we got some spearmen over there harassing those stone miners. Wars are complete on the south, wars are being completed on the north, but down south, villagers are being chased by 2 spearmen. Minimal damage is inflicted by LucifroN. The only thing that he could accomplish is see that his opponent is mining stone, which could be an indicator that we could have a castle very soon for Leenock. Looks like now we see LucifroN moving up with his forces. RB numbers are looking slightly better here for LucifroN, and I do believe that he has gotten the clad armor upgrade. Seeing all the men-at-arms, the response from Leenock will be the Gambeson's unique upgrade, so I assume that we're going to have some Arbaletria being mixed in here. Mangonels are also being made as we speak. As one monk gets picked up, the second monk could also get picked up. Leenock has all 5 relics under his control, by the way, so clock is ticking for LucifroN, and there is some mangonels coming in. LucifroN has no springles to fight this one. This could be a disaster. The mangonels could open up against those longbows any second now. Mangonels creeping closer and closer, but I feel like LucifroN is running into a trap. It's a trap. He has to run to the north right now, and he's being walled in. Leenock needs to wall his opponent in, and he can wipe out this entire army. The longbows have nowhere to go. The longbows have nowhere to go. The men-at-arms are trying to jump on the mangonels now, but their numbers are somewhat limited. They're going to try and take down one mangonel, the other one is going to support it, and it looks like the men-at-arms are being taken down before the mangonels are gotten rid of. Repair villagers now saving that one mangonel, so 2 mangonels against a group of longbows with men-at-arms chasing, with knights chasing, and you see that at this point, LucifroN is just making a run for it. He's desperately trying to save his army before it gets completely surrounded and wiped out. Men-at-arms and knights once again chasing all of those longbows back home. There is no direct answer right now from LucifroN to those knights, and those royal knights are helping quite a lot over here, push back both the men-at-arms and of course the longbows here. Men-at-arms will trade rather evenly between the 2 players with a slight edge in the hands of LucifroN, but of course those knights will be immensely helpful, and the mangonels, those will be the big factor over here for Leenock to push the opponent with. Army numbers are still better for LucifroN, but he doesn't have an answer to those mangonels, and those are going to start opening fire now. Some Arbaletria and crossbows are also in the mix, and those Arbaletria being mixed in with the archers, it's going to be difficult for LucifroN to pick off, and those Arbaletria will also help quite a lot against the men-at-arms. Beautiful rocks coming in here from the mangonels, wiping out most of the spearmen. Spearmen still trying to charge in on those mangonels, but barely any infantry is making it through. They're just getting picked apart by the Arbaletria, the crossbows, and the archers. Mangonel fire once again coming out here. LucifroN is just unable to take down those mangonels. Leenock is doing an exceptional job when it comes to saving them. Looks like one mangonel goes down, but there is still 2 more remaining on the battlefield. And behind this one, the economy of Leenock is just growing and growing. He doesn't need to take these fights, yet he's still able to. Looks like a keep is going to be placed in the middle here. That's a very aggressive position for Leenock, but it's also going to be a great staging ground to potentially prepare an assault against the opponent's base. LucifroN is at 36 army right now. The concern for him is that army is exclusively longbowmen. That means that it's going to die to men-at-arms, to knights, and even just the mangonel fire, castle being attempted in the middle. Unless LucifroN is sending his forces in right now, he won't be able to stop that castle. He has to send in his forces, but here come the Mangonels, and I think Leenock was waiting for that. The Mangonels are unleashing fire over here on the longbows. They will miss the first volley, second volley coming out in a split second. Second volley coming out on the men-at-arms this time around. Arbaletrier taking down most of the men-at-arms before they can close the distance. And now the Mangonels can start opening fire on those longbows. The castle is also completed, and it looks like it's a full retreat from LucifroN once again. The Mangonels and the castle fire is going to force them back, and with villagers being pulled to repair the Mangonels, those Mangonels will also stay alive. Now we're seeing some more stables. Archery ranges being placed here by Leenock. He's got ultimate map control. He's got one sacred site within his walls, another sacred site that is now guarded by a castle, 5 relics, and he has an absolute juggernaut economy behind this one. 93 villagers versus 72 with 5 relics and potentially 2 sacred sites in the next 1 or 2 minutes. Has 3 Mangonels, and the thing that's really missing for LucifroN right now is a couple of Springles to fight this one. He doesn't seem to have any. He might not even have a siege workshop. And that's alarming. There's a siege workshop for him, but I didn't see a single Springald coming out. He's trying to take down the Mangonels with the men-at-arms, but as long as there is enough Arbaletrier there for Leenock, he's just going to pick off the men-at-arms that are approaching the Mangonels. If it was only archers for Leenock, maybe LucifroN had a window, but it's a mix of archers and Arbaletrier, which means that they can pick off both the spears and the men-at-arms trying to take down the Mangonels, and then the Mangonels just get rid of the longbows here. 4 Mangonels now creeping up for Leenock. LucifroN might need to make a stand over here. A 5th Mangonel now rolls up to the battlefield. How is LucifroN going to stop this? 5 Mangonels is impossible to avoid. You can't just juke around with your longbows. 5 Mangonels worth of firepower is enough to wipe out your entire army with a single volley. The barracks goes down, and I feel like we are going to see one decisive battle come in here. A decisive battle where Leenock is starting with a massive advantage. LucifroN's got quite a lot of men-at-arms here. He will try to jump on those Mangonels. Forward castle being placed by Leenock. It's now or never for LucifroN. He needs to fight this one right here, right now. He already has a second castle in his face, and here come the men-at-arms. Mangonels are missing the volley on those, but they could just retarget themselves on the longbows, and that they do. The volley comes out, wiping out quite a lot of the longbows. Still, with the staggered formation, longbows are alive. Men-at-arms are able to take down one of the Mangonels. The second one goes down. Third one could be taken down here as well, but knights are joining the party. The longbow numbers are getting taken care of. The castle is being finished, and with that, LucifroN isn't able to wipe out this army. He's going to get a second castle in his face, and with that, Leenock takes game number 2 as well. 2-0 lead for Leenock in a set that could determine who gets into the playoffs of N4C. The last playoff spot still available for both Leenock and LucifroN, but now it is Leenock's match point, as we are going to go into the second home map of LucifroN. He has lost Dry Arabia, so it is going to be Mongolian Heights. Leenock with a 2 games lead. LucifroN's only shot at making to the playoffs is reverse sweeping this set. So he's gonna have to focus all his energy in the upcoming game, because it's his last chance in M4C. Welcome back to game number 3 of LucifroN versus Leenock. We are going on to Mongolian Heights, and it looks like LucifroN is just going to take the home civilization here, so to say. He's going to have the Mongols being played on the left side in blue, and on the right side it is going to be Leenock playing as the Chinese in red. Hopefully I didn't miss much at the beginning, because as you probably know, we are getting a live feed over here, and that just basically means that, I'm waiting for the game to start. And I also went to take a 2 minutes break myself, and I came back at like 1:25, so I'm hoping that we didn't miss like 20-30 seconds. You definitely didn't miss anything because the image was shown, but I might have been AFK for some time at the beginning, so if the game was silent, well, it's my fault. This being said, we are jumping into game number 3. As I said, it's a Chinese versus Mongols matchup, a historical matchup, so to say. And Leenock, he has to be super happy with that start. Look at the amount of sheep that he has managed to gather. If I had to predict, that's around 15, but I'm getting just tired by looking at and counting sheep, to be honest. Counting this many sheep will definitely make me sleep. The poem was sort of unintended, and I do apologize for it. Alright, so let's get back on track. It seemed like it was 13 sheep here for Leenock, whereas on the other side, it's a bit of a disaster for LucifroN. History seems to repeat itself, because once again, he's very low on sheep. Now, his OVU is very close to the town centers, so he could work with pastures, but obviously that's not going to be easy. It looks like their lag is on the production side of things. Indeed, we're switching back to the caster POV. It's not my recording or it's not my computer lagging. It seems like the transmission between the player computer and the production crew wasn't clean, so that's why we had a bit of a lag here. So barracks coming out right now. As I said, the OVU is close to the town center for LucifroN, so he could technically have pastures for sheep, and he does have the dock working here. There is no dock coming up for Leenock, he just wants to go for a fast feudal. And we have seen this matchup before, and in that matchup, we saw the Chinese player trying to go for a forward Barbican of the Sun. And this can work so well, and it looks like we're going to have Spearman being added here by Leenock too. This could be a very interesting debate, but I think that Leenock is in a very much advantageous position. Hear me out. What's probably going to happen is that LucifroN wants to prevent Leenock from dropping a Barbican of the Sun on his fish. And he's doing that by adding Spearmen. But guess what? The Chinese can just supervise their production building, the barracks, and get a decent amount of Spearmen out. So the entire idea here for LucifroN is that he's trying to outnumber the opponent with Spearmen and prevent the Barbican of the Sun from being dropped. However, Leenock can supervise the barracks, so he's not going to fall behind that much in Spearman numbers. And indeed, here it goes, the Barbican of the Sun is being placed as we speak. The first couple of Spearmen do cross the river, however, for LucifroN, and one thing that's concerning for Leenock is that he doesn't have a single Spearman himself. And I would heavily doubt that this was the initial placement idea for him, and this could be an absolute disaster. What a blunder here for Leenock. He did not expect the Spearman, that's for sure, and now his Barbican of the Sun could be in danger. If he loses this landmark here, that's game over. He will have his feudal age denied, and we would go to game number 4. This might be game over here, because Leenock might not have the tools to get this Barbican of the Sun up. He can supervise the barracks and get his own Spearman out, but now the Spearman influx is just consistent from LucifroN, and of course there is also the Khan to help out against the spears. LucifroN knows very well that he's just going to be able to delay that Barbican of the Sun for so long. Leenock is trying to find an angle to continue building this, but LucifroN at this point knows very well that it's not about stopping it, it's about just delaying it as much as possible, potentially picking off a couple of villagers in the process. Bit of a Spearman dancing coming in here in between the two players. Look at that micro between the two. And it seems like LucifroN is still trying his best to just push away those villagers. Looks like the Barbican is slowly going up, but this was much harder for Leenock than he initially thought, that's for sure. Looks like it's going to be LucifroN disengaging. Keep in mind that LucifroN does have a good fishing eco behind this one, so he's already possessing 7 villagers lead, and he just delayed the opponent's feudal age quite a bit, so this is the first game where I really feel like LucifroN might have a fairly big lead over here. This being said, his opponent is up to feudal age, so he's gonna have the window to start adding archers and deal with those spearmen, and I don't think that LucifroN is on the way to feudal age just yet. He's got a good food eco, but he's yet to start building his landmark, or is he? He's actually building a landmark back at home, the Deer Stones. In this case, he's in a great spot. He's got a good fishing eco. One thing that he could do to protect it is place a tower on the other side of the river preemptively to prevent Leenock from potentially dropping a tower there. But for now, he doesn't have to stress about that because he's got his Spearman protecting his fishing eco. So this is a great position for LucifroN to be in. I am fairly certain Leenock wanted to drop that Barbican of the Sun on the fish of the opponent, but he didn't expect the Spearman to come in this rapidly. Leenock is mining stone, which is a sign that we are going to see most likely a second town center from him. Whereas on the other side for LucifroN, with such a good food eco and the efficiency of the Mongols, this could turn into a fast castle really easily. So I'm curious to see if that's going to be the plan over here going forward. The Khan is still alive, getting a couple of shots away on those spears. That's going to damage them, won't really kill them, but of course, it's free shots, right? So you don't have to worry about getting some extra damage done on the opponent's spearman. Holy potatoes, is that a new patch of sheep? My mind is blown right now. That was at least 10 more sheep coming in here for Leenock. Now, he doesn't have a ton of sheep underneath that mill, so it's actually possible that he accidentally picked some of it up. But that seems to be a lot of sheep to work with. Now the spearmen are coming up, they're trying to burn down this mill. They might set it on fire actually because it's not being repaired. And indeed, they do set it on fire. This is a mistake from Leenock because, in theory, every time he repairs it and the opponent sets it on fire, this should be new bounty given to the Mongol player. It looks like now with the repairs coming in, there is going to be no more chance to set it on fire. But this is a fight that LucifroN wants to take. He's got the hardened spearman as opposed to the opponent not having the hardened upgrade on them. First couple of archers coming in here for Leenock. He's going to utilize the supervise ability just to get the archers out a little faster here. For now, the archers should be enough to push away the spearman. Second town center on the way for Leenock. And it looks like that's the Imperial Academy coming in as well. So he's going for Song Dynasty 2 town centers. Whereas on the other side, it is going to be Castle Age for LucifroN. This is a risky call here for the Chinese player. Because if the Mongols get to Castle Age, they can make siege weapons on the battlefield. And that's probably going to be the plan. So we should see the step out being dropped in a matter of seconds for the Mongol player LucifroN. And then, based on that, it's probably going to be a Man-at-Arms plus Springald, Mangonel, Battering Ram style play. Still, LucifroN possesses a 14 eco lead, and I love how he's consistently adding more fishing eco. He could say I have enough, but he's not doing that. He's saying, look, I'm not being contested on the water, I'm just going to keep adding fishing ships as long as possible. And that's exactly something that's propelling his eco forward. And the fact that he's got the spearmen on the right side also helps a lot with that, because as long as the spearmen are at the back of the opponent's base here, any moment that Leenock moves out, his base would be pushed from behind. So Leenock has to keep some forces back at home, which decreases the probability of him attacking the fishing eco of LucifroN. Wars are now coming up for Leenock. He knows very well that if he drags out the game, that should be Chinese favored quite a bit, especially because the Mongols won't be able to wall up. So long term, the Chinese will be able to raid the Mongols to death. But given the fact that LucifroN is up to Castle Age, this is going to be a quite difficult defense to hold for Leenock. Because he's in Song Dynasty, he's on 2 town centers, and look at that, fishing ships will just pass the dock here for a second dock. This is just because this part of the river is running out of fish, so LucifroN is just readjusting them for some more efficiency. Spearmen once again coming back here, they're still in here to harass the enemy, but it looks like the town center is slowly taking them down, so minimal damage done by those spears now. New dock coming in right now for our blue player LucifroN. Villager was picked off here, and I think that Leenock is trying to get a dock up, but there is the Khan, and the Khan should be able to get rid of that villager. Now that's a Castle Age Khan, and it should have no trouble killing the The villager is actually going for the walls, but it's not gonna happen. And with that, the first Man-at-Arms are crossing the river as we speak. I wonder if the improved siege engineering upgrade is coming in for LucifroN. I would think it is. Yeah, he has a blacksmith. So I'm fairly certain he's got improved siege engineering, or he's grabbing it right now. And I love the way that he's also adding Lancers. Oftentimes you just see players going for 4 Men-at-Arms, but Lancers give you a ton of mobility, and it allows you to just sort of pursue those fleeing villagers. The scout of Leenock is going down, and now Leenock is getting pushed from all directions. He's got 6 army back at home, basically 3 spearmen, 3 archers. That's not going to do much against the Men-at-Arms or the Lancers. And despite the fact that Leenock is on 2 town centers, he's actually behind an eco, because of course his opponent has a fishing eco, and now the Lancers are jumping in on the villagers. That's going to be a ton of casualties going in for Leenock. He's not even noticing it right now. That's already 4 villagers down potentially. Make it 5, make it 6, and completely unnoticed is the fact that he's getting his villagers killed because there are so many attack notifications going off. He's having his Goldman being attacked, and using that distraction, LucifroN is able to take down what seems to be 8 or 9 villagers on that wood eco. That is basically the entire economy of Leenock going down the drain here. And of course, new Men-at-Arms and new Lancers are coming in. So even if Leenock somehow cleans this up, his opponent is just going to bring in the new wave. Leenock's eco is an absolute train wreck right now. Most of the food eco of Leenock is centered around that mill, and that's the weakness of the Chinese in many ways. if you lose access to that mill for whatever reason, your food eco is going to be in trouble. You are relying on that mill being supervised to be the heart and soul of your food eco, and that currently is not the case here for Leenock because it's being constantly pushed by men-at-arms, and also the con. Men-at-arms do get picked off by the spearmen here, but LucifroN just keeps trickling in reinforcements to the opponent's base. I think the only additional thing that LucifroN could potentially do is maybe add a second town center so it doesn't fall behind the villagers even in the long run. But it looks like he's going to drop a tower instead, which is also a nice way to press on to this already existing advantage. He could also think about adding some battering rams, potentially pushing that Barbican of the Sun. That could be a great idea. So he's got a lot of options to go for, really, and the minimal amount of things that Leenock can do at this point. Now, looking at Leenock, he's piling up food and gold. He still believes in this one, and truth being told, he's only behind by 10 eco. And of course, he's slowly taking down the opponent's economy as well, or opponent's army. So LucifroN has been losing those expensive lancers and men-at-arms in his eco. So there is a glimpse of hope actually here for Leenock because his eco is not that terrible anymore. And suddenly, the Chinese eco with the supervised mill could kick in. Right now, Leenock is very happy that he has managed to capture so many sheep at the beginning, because right now he's living off that sheep. If he had half the sheep that he collected at the beginning, he would already be in trouble, because he would have to move out for additional food sources. So part of the reason why he's still alive is because he still has those sheep to work with, and if he gets up to Castle Age, things could get complicated here for LucifroN, because, as I said, the eco discrepancy is almost not even noticeable. Man-at-Arms Mangonel is now coming in. The raids are still quite intense here by Leenock, or LucifroN, excuse me. So Leenock is losing villagers left and right. Those lumberjacks are being harassed over there. There is apparently an overchop that's allowing knights to flood in, and there is a new tower being placed behind that. If the Mangonel sets up behind that wood line, that could be a disaster for Leenock, because those towers might provide enough line of sight to allow the Mangonel to shoot over the forest and just kill all the villagers from the other side. That could be an absolute disaster over here for Leenock, and I wonder if that's the plan here for LucifroN. He's pulling up the Mangonel. Now battering ram is also being added so they can start poking away at that wall. It looks like they're focusing on the barracks at the first moment. Clock tower now finished by Leenock, so he's up to Castle Age. He could think about palace guards, and he can catch up in terms of army numbers quite fast by supervising the barracks. Here comes the battering ram. This is something that Leenock is going to have to stop, but he doesn't have to be worried about one battering ram just yet. Leenock now having his eco overrun by men-at-arms, however, that's a bigger concern. A couple of crossbows would help immensely against that, but I don't see a single crossbowman right now. And Leenock doesn't even have a single crossbowman in the queue. It's only veteran spearmen, so I'm not exactly sure how he's going to stop men-at-arms here. He's got the towers, he's got the town center fire, but the Imperial officers are being picked off by the men-at-arms. Archers, men-at-arms being taken down here. And you get the feel that the fight that Leenock is taking right now is disturbingly inefficient, and there are so many villagers that are also getting caught in the crossfire. Now the villager count of Leenock is quite disturbing, 48-9 only. He takes down the Mangonel, but now basically his eco is just non-existent. He's got no food income, his gold income is quite underwhelming, food income not spectacular. He's taking down the battering ram, that's for sure, but quite a few buildings were set on fire. Those houses are burning down, more man-at-arms are trickling in, and Leenock is trying to hold on to a game that seems to be lost, to be honest. Losing so many villagers here is not something that he's gonna have an easy time recovering from, especially because the next wave of men-at-arms is just overrunning his eco, and they're also affected by the yam speed. Those towers placed behind the forest are giving the yam speed boost to all of these men-at-arms, and that's making it easier for them to chase down villagers. I think there's a villager in the party over there. A blue villager was sent into the base of the opponent. That's probably a misclick over there by LucifroN. Indeed, there's a villager fighting underneath the town center. I'm not sure if it's visible, but there is a lady fighting for LucifroN. It's trailing those two men-at-arms. Indeed, there is the villager, and I think that villager is about to get wiped out. But it doesn't matter. Actually, the lady survives. The lady survived because LucifroN is going to take this game over here. Leenock, it really felt like this game just fell apart right from minute number 1. He was very successful gathering sheep, but I guess that comes at a cost. He didn't really scout what the opponent was doing, I presume, and the end result was that he didn't know about the barracks until it was too late. He tried to drop the Barbican of the Sun on the dock of the opponent, I assume, but he wasn't expecting the spearmen to be there, so not only was he unable to drop the Barbican close to the river, he also had his feudal age progress denied quite heavily, or at least delayed. And in the end, even though he was 2 town center Song Dynasty, his opponent had a good fishing eco, leveraged that to get a castle age timing in, and from that point on, he was just using the armored units, the men-at-arms and the lancers, to keep raiding the opponent's economy, and Leenock could just never catch his breath. If he had some crossbows helping out when he reached castle age, that would have maybe saved the day for him, but it was a difficult spot because he simply wasn't set up to start making army, and LucifroN was just not letting his feet off the gas. He was just trickling in wave after wave of men-at-arms and knights, and slowly but surely he ground down Leenock's eco. So LucifroN stays alive, very important victory here. He's fighting for his tournament life right now. He is going to take the win with the Mongols, and his opponent, Leenock, is going to lose with the Chinese. Now, however, we're going to the 2 home maps of Leenock. If LucifroN wants to have a chance at getting into the top 6, then he's going to have to take 2 home maps away from the opponent, which is not going to be easy, but neither is it impossible. So if LucifroN plays like he did in this game, this could go down all the way to game number 5. Welcome to game number 4. In between LucifroN and Leenock, we are jumping into an Abbasids versus Mongols matchup. Up north is LucifroN playing as the blue Abbasids, and down south it is Leenock now handling the Mongols in red. So we have seen the Abbasids in the hands of Leenock, I believe, and now LucifroN is going to handle them, and we have seen LucifroN using the Mongols in the previous game. Now we will have Leenock controlling them. This is an intriguing matchup because there are so many layers to this, and this is actually a matchup that we see quite commonly. The map is going to be Lipany, if I'm not mistaken, and this is one of those matchups where the Mongols, they have tried doing the same thing many times against the Abbasids. It was basically the plan of trying to counter the 2 town center build with a fast castle style approach. We'll have to see if that works out over here, and I might be wrong. This might actually be King of the Hill. Hang on. We'll have to check that. Lipany and King of the Hill are the home maps remaining, so both are an option. But I'm suspecting that this is going to be King of the Hill, and indeed it is. We do have a weird rock formation in the middle. You see, this is just one big rock. So that's going to be interesting because that's not traversable, of course, and it's going to block the access to the middle quite a bit to LucifroN. In fact, I have to say that this map is slightly more favorable for Leenock. If you look at this, the sacred site is not directly in the middle of the hill. In fact, it's actually offset to the left side. And the bigger thing is that this hill, right over here, that hill is blocking the access of LucifroN quite a bit, because he's gonna have to go through either of these 2 narrow crossings in order to get to the sacred site. This being said, one of the things I'm noticing is that the distribution of the forests are actually fairly even. So if you look at the map, both of the players will have quite a lot of backup forests to work with, which is not something that you see every day when you look at King of the Hill. Looks like the Mongol player, Leenock, is able to drop down that town center in between the forest and the gold mine. That's a great spot for your town center. And in terms of the Ovu, he's got that all the way at the back, and there is something near that Ovu. If you look at the minimap, even though we're not looking over there, there's a red dot next to this Ovu, which should be some sort of building. Likely it is going to be a barracks because we're seeing a forward villager come in, and indeed, it is the good old-fashioned Mongol tower rush, which could be devastating on this map. Because if there is a map where the Abbasids could struggle to get the second town center going, or in general get anything going, it could be this one. Because the amount of wood that you have access to is somewhat limited. Your starting forests are pretty far away, and they're rather small, and oftentimes the backups are pretty far away from your base. So the Mongols could definitely capitalize on a tower rush here. Now, one of the things I'm noticing is that Leenock doesn't have a spectacular scouting over here. In fact, his Khan is still alive, but it's not scouting the map in front of this army moving forward. Looks like the first tower is going to be placed over here. That's a blind tower placement by Leenock, and that's the pure definition of luck. He places a tower that's good to deny the wood line. He didn't even know about the gold mine, and he's gonna be like, yoink, look at that. I just found your gold mine. Spearmen are now coming in here, the mining camp now under attack, there is no point deleting this anymore for LucifroN, and I don't think that LucifroN is aware of that tower just yet. The thing is that he probably knows that there's a tower rush coming, but he hasn't seen the tower just yet. 2 more spearmen will join these two at the front very soon, so we are going to have a total of 4. And so far, this tower rush is working out really well. Villagers are now being pulled apparently to try and take down the villager taking this tower, but the spearmen are joining the fun, and I think the tower is going up. This is going to be a key moment in the game. The villager does finish the tower, now jumps into the tower as well, opens fire on the villagers, and LucifroN, in a game that could decide who gets into the playoffs of N4C, in this battle, LucifroN just lost 2 villagers, and it's match point for Leenock. Feudal Age is in for LucifroN, so he's going to drop that archer range. He could think about a camel archer, because that would take a limited amount of time to deal with those spearmen, or he could think about archers. He still has access to wood. That's the only positive thing that we can say about the position of LucifroN right now. Deerstone's coming in as we speak for Leenock. He's going to set the mining camp on fire, getting all the juicy bounty for that. And now he's going to look for a different target. There really isn't anything else that he can burn down right now. But as you see, LucifroN is relocating his lumberjacks to the north, and this is something that could be pressured by Leenock. First archer now coming out. He's going to try and snipe that villager. Can the villager finish the tower? That's going to be a key moment in here. Spearman trying to push away the archer. The archer not able to finish off the villager. That's a 1 HP lady that survived over there. She's the MVP so far, getting the second tower up. And with that, this is going to be a difficult position to push for LucifroN. He's got a backup gold mine to work with on the right side, so it's not a complete disaster, but definitely not an ideal scenario to have 2 towers in your face, especially if that lady is something that LucifroN loses track of. Because it's possible that LucifroN lost track of that lady, and if that happens, a tower could be a reality on that other wood line. Looks like the lady is now making it back home. LucifroN sees her. LucifroN sees her, and it just takes 1 hit from that scout to take down the lady. Lady's gonna make a run for a tower, but I think at this point LucifroN needs to sacrifice that scout if needed to kill the villager. He pokes down the lady, gets away with the scout, so finally he's able to stop that forward for the time being. Looks like Leenock is piling up resources for what could be a potential Castle Age play over here. Oftentimes you're seeing players going for Dark Age aggression with Mongols, turning it into a fast castle. And in this case, this could work out so well, because LucifroN is just now starting to mine stone. Now, it's possible that LucifroN just wants to play defensive towers into arrow slits, and that's the reason why he's mining stone, but I would be somewhat surprised. I think his initial game plan, and still his game plan, is to play 2 town centers, but he's going to take a lot of time to gather the stone he needs. I mean, if you look at Leenock's resources, he can click up to Castle Age in about a minute and a half, and LucifroN is not even remotely close to dropping that second town center, let alone actually capitalizing on the extra villagers made out of that. The question is whether or not fresh foodstuffs was an upgrade that LucifroN managed to grab, because he was pushed off from his gold mine quite early, and even though the abbotses don't use a lot of gold in Feudal, if you were pushed off from that gold mine early, it's possible he wasn't able to afford the fresh foodstuffs upgrade, so this is a big question right now. I will try to keep an eye out on his food indicators, see how he's decreasing the amount of food, because when he queues up a new villager, we should see the food decline by 25 if he has fresh foodstuffs. And I think he has just lost 25 food, so he seems to have the upgrade. Archers now increasing in numbers, whereas on the other side, Leenock still has the towers going, and of course behind this one, he's building up his numbers, getting ready and to get to Castle Age, and once he goes to Castle Age, he's likely going to start playing around with the men-at-arms. Meanwhile, the second town center will be dropped on the far right. That's a great town center spot for LucifroN. It's going to cover a new wood line, which is always valuable on this map, and of course it's also going to cover a gold mine, so he's going to have access to all the resources he needs, and this is exactly the scenario that he wants to be in. Because he got pushed, but he's not being cut off from resources. The only concern right now for LucifroN is that he was set back very much building that town center, so ideally he would already have that town center running for like 2 or 3 minutes now. But the thing is that he doesn't have it up yet, which means that he's still at even villager count with the opponent, an opponent who is ready to go into Castle Age. And this is the source of concern right now for LucifroN. Now LucifroN was able to access the berries for the time being. Those are being harassed by the Khan. Archers are trying to push it away. Beautiful micro, by the way, by Leenock. Look at that. He's diving in and out, trying to harass those villagers, trying to pick off the archers, and then whenever the Khan gets hit, he's going to call it back and just heal it back up. He's constantly harassing those berry villagers, and it's going to be annoying as well, because it's going to constantly notify LucifroN about an attack. Meanwhile, on the right side, there's a sneaky tower attempt by Leenock, but that's going to be a short-lived effort because this villager will just run into the town center fire. 3, 2, 1, and Ripperino. Yep. Yep. That's not a tower that's going up, lady, but we value the effort. Stepper out on the way right now for Leenock, so he's on the way to Castle Age. He has a stable, which means that he could start popping out Lancers, and he has seen the exact same scenario in the previous game. And one of the things I praised about LucifroN's build in that game was that he didn't just go for Man-at-Arms, he also went for a couple of Lancers, because the Lancers give him mobility. The Lancers give him an opportunity to intercept villagers that are fleeing. The Men-at-Arms have a much harder time killing villagers that are escaping, even though these Men-at-Arms will be buffed by the YAM network. Keep in mind that the forward towers will also affect the movement speed of those Men-at-Arms, so that's an also extra buff that is provided by towers. And now it seems like the tower is able to reach the villagers and the berries. This is not something that LucifroN seemed to have noticed just yet. He's just now pulling away the villagers, but this cuts him off from his only berry patch, and he doesn't even have a ton of sheep to work with, so accessing food is going to be difficult, and he's about to have that house set on fire, which of course will also mean some extra bounty for Leenock. Leenock is in a great position, and you see there is going to be a third town center being placed by LucifroN. He's also dropping a battering ram. He wants to take down those towers. Remember, the towers still have spearmen garrisoned inside, so what the micro will look like for Leenock is that when the ram gets close, he jumps out, tries to throw some torches. That's a nice tongue twister. Tries to throw some torches. Okay, so that's the plan for Leenock. Jumping on the battering rams. And then, of course, when the archers get close, he will just jump back into the tower. Or at least that's the theory. Whether or not he can make that happen is a big question. Khan now with the Castle Age powers, which means that it's going to be much more impactful, and it's really able to harass the enemies as a standalone unit. Bows are coming up on the right side for LucifroN. He's realizing that he needs to somehow stop this aggression, but one thing that LucifroN doesn't have right now is food eco. Look at that. And even the gold eco is a question mark, but that's not really needed right now. 0 gold per minute, 39 food per minute. That's not a recipe for victory. And as you see, the spearmen will jump out of the tower, jump on the battering ram when there is no one nearby, and they will just try to burn it down. Men-at-Arms appear on the right side, they will start picking off the villagers. The camel archers and the archers are closing distance, trying to take down those spears. And ultimately, I expect LucifroN to be able to clean up this push, although the ram is disturbingly low HP. He's going to take down one of the towers, but trading one tower at this point for Leenock for a battering ram is very cost efficient. And given the fact that the right side is still wide open, the Men-at-Arms are now coming in, the Lancers are coming in. They are, for whatever reason, trying to burn down the barracks instead of actually killing the villagers. But now, the eco of LucifroN is under pressure. And the concerning thing for him right now is that he's got a 10 villagers lead only, and he's about to start losing villagers. The Khan is moving in to try and harass the Berryvilles. Lancers are roaming across the base of LucifroN. 12 army versus 8, but the power of that army is going to be much greater here for Leenock. His Lancers seem to be struggling to find a way into the opponent's base, however. A couple more villagers going down here. And the problem for LucifroN is that he's sort of stuck in Feudal Age, and he keeps getting harassed from all directions. One of the things that Leenock could now do is capture the sacred site in the middle, actually. Because, as you see, LucifroN is so much pinned inside his base that you could justify capping the sacred site and then just starting the countdown, forcing LucifroN to make a move at some point. Lancers once again coming in from the right side. Leenock trickling in men-at-arms and some Lancers from one barracks and one stable. And you could see for a brief moment the battering ram being built by LucifroN to try and take down this tower. Once again, the leftover spearmen from Dark Age are pushing this one back. And once again, the battering ram will be taken down. Those are expensive siege weapons. So being able to take it down here for Leenock would be massive value. Looks like the battering ram gets away and LucifroN is going to have a chance to heal it up. Is that a prayer tent that's moving up? A prayer tent would be great here for Leenock. Start picking up the relics, capitalize on the map control. Lancers for now harassing the eco of LucifroN, 56 to 41 villagers. Steadily increasing the villager count is LucifroN, but he keeps getting raided, and the problem is that he's still stuck in Feudal Age. This being said, Leenock wasn't doing an exceptional job actually capitalizing on the map control so far. He's doing some raiding damage, but he isn't able to inflict that many casualties on the opponent's side. This raid with the Knights is actually quite decent, as he's going to take down the battering ram. That's also going to be a decent accomplishment. The tower gets cleaned up, which also removed the YAM network here from this area, so that's definitely a win for our blue player LucifroN. But of course, if Leenock really capitalized on the map control, he would have 4 or 5 relics by now, and he also would have the Sacred Site. And I guess that's the way that Leenock has to play this one, because it seems glaringly obvious that he won't be able to finish off the opponent here with just these raids. It doesn't really have the numbers for that. He's still quite successful killing villagers, that's not the question. He's killing 1 more now, maybe potentially 2 more. Man-at-Arms also quite successful killing villagers on the right side. But he himself is only at 44 villagers, and if you look at the population, it is 51 pop. Now dropping a second town center, I love that. One of the ways that you can capitalize on your advantage here is that you also add a town center, so you don't just let your opponent get ahead in terms of villagers, or at least there won't be such a gigantic villager lead for LucifroN. LucifroN's food eco is also a bit of a problem. If you look at his food income, it's right now 300 per minute. He's forced to add farms right now. He's floating 1,000 wood, so at least he can add a lot of farms. The Khan actually survives the encounter with the town center, that Khan surviving at 20 HP. That is a big move here from Leenock. He almost lost his Khan. Tower being placed in the middle, so Leenock is setting up to capture the Sacred Site. That's a great move. That's exactly what he has to do. Because LucifroN is nowhere close to contesting the middle. Even if you are not going to get to the Sacred Site victory, it's never a bad idea just to sort of put that little pressure on your opponent that he has to take that Sacred Site at some point. And you can just start fortifying that with like 5, 6, 7 Springald towers. And as I said, LucifroN doesn't really have the capability of taking it back right now. And worst case scenario, you just get 100 gold per minute for it. So it's a great move from Leenock to start capping that Sacred Site. And once again, just put the pressure on LucifroN that he's on a timer. Khan still being used to great effect over here. This is just such a frustrating thing to deal with here for LucifroN. As the Sacred Site now gets capped, the Sacred Site countdown begins. You can see that at the bottom left corner of the screen. I think this will be the time when the Khan gets picked off though. The Town Center Fire should be able to get rid of it. TC Fire focusing down the Lancer though, so once again the Khan gets away. And I have to say, Leenock is just maximizing the efficiency of that Khan so well. He's been picking off villagers, spearmen and whatnot with that for such a long time. Still keeps picking off some villagers and spears here. Lancers still being trickled into the eco of LucifroN, and the villager count is now evening out. You see 66 villagers here for LucifroN, 55 for Leenock. He's got the Sacred Site in the middle as well, starts picking up relics, and of course he's got the step raid out, so Leenock's economy is actually going to be better very soon compared to his opponent. Farms being set up right now for LucifroN. He's getting close to Castle Age in terms of... actually, he's not getting close. He's not getting close at all. He's stuck in Feudal Age, and now Leenock isn't messing around. Leenock is realizing that, okay, I just have to mass an army in the middle, and my opponent will have to push me at some point. He can't make a keep, of course, because he's Mongols, but he can make 5, 6, 7 Springald towers, and of course, those will also give him the YAM network in the middle, and then just use an army over there, make a bunch of Springolds that can snap down enemy siege weapons, make a couple of Mangonels that can take down the Camel Archers, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's no longer harassing the opponent's base, he's just trying to assemble a force in the middle. Looks like the Camel Archer might be able to get away with a kill on the Khan, but the Khan disengages, and Leenock is calculating those fights so well. He knows very well when he needs to retreat, and when he can get away with the greedy play with the Khan. Looks like LucifroN tried to send in some units to try and decap the Sacred Site, but he didn't expect enemies to be there, and as I said, this is why you're trying to cap that Sacred Site early. We're already down to 8 minutes, and LucifroN is nowhere close to pushing the middle. If he wants to get to Castle Age, that's going to be 1 minute 1 minute 45 to wait. That's a flat time as well for the Abbasids. Which means that that countdown will go down to around 6 minutes if LucifroN clicks up to Castle Age right now, and LucifroN will still not have any Castle Age army to work with. The Khan is going to get away once again. Low HP Khan getting away from the fight. I don't think Leenock lost that Khan once and it has been on the battlefield for the last 10 minutes or so. Absolutely spectacular control of the Khan over there for Leenock. He's in full focus mode. He's bringing back the relics right now. He's going to have the second relic under his control very soon. He's behind by 16 villagers, but he's controlling the sacred site in the middle. And what's most important is that LucifroN is just now going up to Castle Age. So he will reach Castle when the sacred site timer is around 5:30 to 5:45. This basically means that LucifroN will have one shot at pushing the middle, because it's going to take 1 or 2 minutes at minimum to build up an army that's capable of pushing the middle, and you won't have that window twice. So at this point, for LucifroN, he has to know that. And this way, he knows that he has one shot, which means that he needs to wait as long as possible to push this. There's no point pushing at 4 minutes mark, because if you don't have the army, you don't have a second shot at this. So he might just wait until there is like 2 minutes left on the counter, for example, and try to build an as large army as possible. He is Abbasid, so he can make siege weapons on the battlefield himself, and that could be a saving grace right now. For now, Leenock is just fortifying the middle though, and this is the problem that LucifroN is facing. The more he waits to build up an army, the more window Leenock is going to receive to just try and get towers up here, and it looks like Leenock isn't even going to wait. This could come as a surprise here for LucifroN, because I think LucifroN would have just said, oh yeah, Leenock is going to defend the middle. I don't think he expected Leenock to push this, but this is a great idea from Leenock. Let me tell you why. It's because you're forcing a fight in the opponent's base, which means that he doesn't even have the chance to potentially neutralize that sacred site or just decap it. Because he first needs to clean this force up in your eco. And of course, the other thing is that LucifroN doesn't have an army to fight this one right now. So you could just push directly into the base of the opponent, start setting those farms on fire, and that's exactly what the Mangonels are going to be all about. Mangonels opening fire on that mill, destroying quite a lot of farming eco here. LucifroN is up to Castle Age, but he's without a single Castle Age unit yet, and the men-at-arms are now flooding his lumberjacks. This is LucifroN's tournament life on the line, and it's looking very grim for him. Only 5.5 minutes left on the Sacred Site countdown, but even without that, Leenock is in a great spot because he's overrunning his opponent's base with men-at-arms. Here comes a Spearman at Springald push. You only see 2 Springolds for our red player, 3 for our blue player, LucifroN. Springolds will trade arrows against each other here. This is going to force back the forces of Leenock, at least for the time being. But here come the men-at-arms. He's going to pop the speed arrow to boost the men-at-arms, and the men-at-arms will jump on the Springolds. Villagers coming in to repair. Looks like one Springold might be taken down here. The Spearmen will try their best to push back the men-at-arms. Looks like the Springold will be taken down, however. Mangonels setting up to try and deal with the Spearman. Once again, the men-at-arms jumping on the Springolds. One Spearman gets taken down. Mangonels unleashing fire on those Spearmen. That was a direct hit. So many Spearmen have to be low HP here. Archers now picking off most of those charging on the Mangonels. One Mangonel gets taken down. The second one is under attack right now. Men-at-arms, however, taking good fight against the rest of the Spearmen, simply because so many of them were decimated by the rocks of the Mangonels. And you see that the army of LucifroN is just disappearing from the battlefield, as well as his chances of making it to the playoffs of N4C. He's tapping out. LucifroN gets taken down by Leenock 3-1, and with that, Leenock secures his spot in the playoffs, the quarterfinals. Whereas for LucifroN, a valiant effort, but in the end, he falls to Leenock. And with that, LucifroN is going to finish N4C with a top 8 position, but fails to make the top 6 to get to the playoffs. He had a good run. He had a rough start. He got Marine Lord in the first round, lost 3-0. Then he lost to his brother Vortex 3-1, but then he took down Viper 3-1. So there seemed to be a chance for a redemption over here. After that, however, he loses to the Muslim 3-0. And today, Leenock's take him down 3-1. Whereas on the other side, Leenock had a good start to the tournament, took down Mista 3-1. But then suddenly things started going wrong. Lost to Beastie, then he lost to Vortex. After that, Leenock takes down Viper, but Leenock had to win this set to guarantee his spot in the playoffs, and that he did. And with that, Leenock is going to be in the top 6 in the playoffs, and LucifroN is going to say goodbye to N4C, at least as a player. Still, good performance from him, and I'm fairly certain that now his next job in this tournament is to cheer for his brother Vortex.